Before becoming the king of the featherweight division, Volkanovski had to prove that he could face the most dangerous veterans of the division. And Chad Mendes was exactly that, a former title contender with explosive wrestling skills and brutal knockout power. The fight began with Mendes showcasing his experience, landing powerful punches, and taking Volkanovski down multiple times. But what no one expected was the Australian's resilience. In the second round, Volkanovski turned the fight around, punishing Mendes with precise strikes until leaving him with no answers. With a brutal TKO, Volkanovski not only won the fight, but announced his arrival to the elite of the UFC. That night, the world began to notice something special about Volkanovski. No matter how hard he gets hit, he always finds a way to come back. His biggest rival versus Brian Ortega. If there was one fight that showcased Volkanovski's heart and resilience, it was his bout against Brian Ortega. The challenge was clear. Ortega had the most dangerous jiu-jitsu in the division. If he managed to catch Volkanovski in a submission, the fight would end in seconds. In the third round, the worst possible scenario happened. Ortega caught Volkanovski in a guillotine choke. The champion was trapped, out of breath, and it seemed like the fight was over. But then, the impossible happened. Volkanovski survived. Somehow he broke free from the submission, escaped, and began to brutally punish Ortega until the end of the round. The crowd was in shock. How had he survived that? Ortega attempted another submission afterward, but Volkanovski escaped again. After 5 rounds, Volkanovski proved that he was not just a great fighter, but a true warrior. He defended his title and made it clear that no one would dethrone him easily. His toughest fight. Just when we thought his story was already written, the greatest fight of all arrived. His showdown with Islam Makhachev, the lightweight champion. The battle was not only physical, but psychological. Volkanovski, who had been invincible in his division, had to face a rival that many considered more complete, more dominant. The criticism was relentless. They met for the first time on February 12, 2023, not just for a title, but for the right to be considered the best fighter in the world, regardless of weight class. A clash of styles, of mentalities, and of a mutual respect that was about to be put to the test in the Octagon. The first round began with Makhachev looking to impose his style. Volkanovski, however, did not let himself be dragged into his opponent's game, and despite Makhachev's attempts to take him down, Volkanovski resisted with strength and cunning, defending takedown attempts and looking for opportunities to strike on the feet. The second round was even more tense. Makhachev, knowing that Volkanovski was not going to give in easily, began using his wrestling more aggressively. But Volkanovski showed an amazing ability to recover positions and counter. The Australian, being shorter in height, used his speed and anticipation to stay out of Makhachev's reach. As the fight neared its end, it became evident that Volkanovski had achieved something few expected. He had matched or even surpassed Makhachev in certain aspects of the fight, but in the final round, the wear and tear of the fight took its toll, and Makhachev seized the opportunity to take control with a couple of dangerous exchanges. However, Volkanovski showed no signs of surrendering. Finally, after a war that shook the Octagon, the judges declared Islam Makhachev the winner by unanimous decision. Despite the defeat, Volkanovski proved to the world that he not only belongs in the UFC elite, but is a force to be reckoned with in any division. The fight was a spectacle of resilience, skill, and heart. Volkanovski, the featherweight champion, had given everything in his attempt to become a double champion, and although he didn't succeed that night, his legacy as one of the greatest warriors in UFC history was absolutely sealed. The second fight between Alexander Volkanovski and Islam Makhachev took place on October 21, 2023. at UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi. This rematch was highly anticipated, as their first encounter at UFC 284 had been a close war, where Makhachev won by unanimous decision, albeit with some controversy. However, this second fight was completely different. Initially, Makhachev was scheduled to face Charles Oliveira at UFC 294, but less than 2 weeks before the event, Oliveira suffered a cut on his eyebrow during training and was forced to withdraw. In response, Volkanovski accepted the fight on just 11 days' notice, despite not being in an active training camp. Despite the short preparation time, Volkanovski was confident that he could correct the mistakes of the first fight and defeat the lightweight champion. From the beginning of the first round, Makhachev was much more aggressive than in their first fight. The Dagestani fighter launched kicks to the body and landed clean punches. Volkanovski, for his part, tried to stay mobile and find his distance, but he failed to establish his rhythm due to Makhachev's constant pressure. History with Ilia Topuria. The rivalry between Ilia Topuria and Alexander Volkanovski marked a pivotal moment in the history of the UFC featherweight division. Their only fight to date took place at UFC 298 on February 17, 2024 in Anaheim, California. Before this fight, Alexander Volkanovski was the reigning featherweight champion and one of the most dominant fighters in the division's history. He had defended his title several times with victories over big names like Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, and Chan Sung Jung. After his loss to Makhachev, he decided to return to his division to defend his belt against a new challenger, Ilia Topuria. Topuria had been outspoken in his pre-fight statements, claiming that he was going to dethrone Volkanovski and prove that he was the best fighter in the division. In the second round, Ilia Topuria came out more aggressive, closing the distance with fast and powerful combinations. Volkanovski tried to use his experience and movement to avoid getting caught, but Topuria found his perfect opportunity. At 3 minutes and 32 seconds of the second round, Topuria landed a devastating right hand that connected cleanly on Volkanovski's jaw. The champion collapsed to the ground, visibly dazed, and Topuria wasted no time finishing him off with ground strikes until the referee stopped the fight. With this technical knockout, Ilia Topuria became the new UFC featherweight champion, dethroning Volkanovski and keeping his undefeated record intact. With this victory, Ilia Topuria established himself as the best fighter in the division, capturing the belt and earning the respect of fans and MMA analysts. The highly anticipated rematch between Ilia Topuria and Alexander Volkanovski was initially scheduled to headline UFC 314 in April 2025. However, on February 20th, 2025, it was announced that Topuria decided to vacate the featherweight title to move up to the lightweight division, leaving the championship vacant. As a result, the main event of UFC 314 was changed to a fight between Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopes for the vacant featherweight title. His legacy, Volkanovski's rise, was unstoppable. Every fight, every victory brought him closer to the top. He defeated legends, giants of the division, and finally, in December 2019, he claimed the UFC Featherweight Championship, defeating Max Holloway, the man many considered the greatest of all time in that division. And so, the story of Alexander Volkanovski continues to be written, between victories, doubts, sacrifices, and shadows. The criticisms surrounding him have never been about his skill in the Octagon, but about the price of success he had to pay on his journey to glory. The question remains, is hard work what made him the best? Or is he simply a lucky man? Leave us your answer in the comments and tell us which fighter you'd like to learn more about. Subscribe for more.